Caucus public hearing.
Yeah, for the update.
Just a public caucus update on parking system. Call this meeting to order from Scranton Parking System. Update for, I guess we have a new owner too, or new manager. Very
Yes,
good.
well, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. If you just say your name and then your position, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Dave Trevisani. I'm with Grow America. We are the affiliate of the Community Development Property Scranton, which is the operator of the parking system here in Scranton. I'll just start her off. This is our first quarter update meeting, parking update. We have these once a quarter. I think there was some scheduling conflicts, so we didn't do one at the end of last year, so it's been a little while. This will be our typical agenda with one addition. I'd like to introduce Brendon Bowen. Brendon is the regional manager of Car Park, our new operator, replacing ABM. We went through a process end of last year. The board thought it was time for a change, and we went out and interviewed a number of different operators and selected on Car Park. Brendon will introduce himself in just a few minutes, but before we actually get to that, we'll have our typical agenda. Jake will go over a program update. We'll have some year-to-date numbers for you. We'll also review our year-end numbers, 2023, against our budget for 2023, and we'll present to you our board-approved 2024 budget. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jake.
Jake Ciulla, Grow America. Jumping right into it, lease updates for all our commercial spaces. Steamtown Hookah is extending 3 years as of March 1st, and Comics on the Green extended 2 years at the beginning of the year. No other spaces come to term outside of our storage unit at the Casey Garage, which is a month-to-month through June. Jumping over some capital project review from this previous year of 23, the Mifflin Street lot, that work still needs to be completed. The DPW will be handling that for us, and a few things more of a priority at the time, so we'll work with the city to get that scheduled. The replacement of all the handicap street signage, that was complete. Casey Garage waterproofing, and the roof replacement enclosure at Casey was also completed. Another job completed at the end of 23 was eggshell finish for the former Coliseum space at the Medallion Garage. We'll look to lease that out here in 24.
Yeah, maybe one comment. I think we remain to be, pretty excited about the fact that we are able to keep the spaces maintained full. We really have all spaces occupied except for the one space in the Medallion Garage. And as Jake mentioned, we were able to finish that space out in a vanilla finish, which essentially means it has heat, it has plumbing, and it has a drywall finish. So I think that we'll probably work with a local broker to try to look for a tenant. Prior to that, it was very difficult. The space was so raw that we really couldn't get anybody interested. So we went ahead and finished the space out on a limited basis to try to be more attractive to a tenant.
Looking ahead in 24, a few projects we'll be looking to do is to replace the HVAC system in our Catch 21 space. The fire panel at the Medallion Garage will need to be updated this year as well. We will look to power wash all the garages that we had to push that off in 23. And lastly, we'll be looking to upgrade some of our equipment at the mall garage. Any questions on capital projects? And I'll send it over to Brendon to give you guys an introduction to the car park.
Hey, how's everyone doing? Excuse me before you start, and sorry I'm interrupting. When it comes to capital projects, in the last few days, there was an article in the newspaper about getting more charging stations into, I think, the Linden Street garage. Is that part of your system, or is that run separately?
Those will be city chargers. I think you know that the city has some electric vehicles. They received some funds to buy electric vehicles for I think some of their zoning officers, and they needed a place to charge them and store them overnight, and they felt it made sense to have that happen where the folks come to work. So we agreed with the city, not formally just yet, but to have those charging stations installed in the Linden garage. So I believe the city put out an RFP to select an operator to select that system, and when that's done, they'll be installed in the Linden garage, but I believe dedicated to charge the electric vehicles that are owned by the city. We still have charging stations in the garages that are open to the general public, and with the city's vehicles, I don't think the city or us wanted the city's vehicles to take up the public charging stations, so I think this is a good partnership.
Okay, how many charging stations are there in total?
Currently, Jake, two doubles in 4 of the garages. Do you have that right?
So, so there's 2 double charging stations in 4 garages, and then this will be in addition to that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you. And sorry for the interruption.
All you, Brendon.
No problem at all. So Brendon Bowen with the car park. So I'll tell you a little bit about the car park. So our company was founded in 2003, Boise, Idaho. We have a focus on mid-markets, and what we do is we bring technology and innovation to every city, every state that we step into. We take a look at the operation and what's working and how we can improve the operation. We don't just come in and say, hey, there's a one-size-fits-all approach. So we're going to look to do the same thing here, observe what's going on, speak to members of the community, solicit feedback, and then use our expertise to provide the best service and improve operations to the best of our ability. So we have experience throughout the country. We're in 22 different states. We also manage different municipalities, some on the larger side, but still sort of a mid-market. Louisville, Kentucky, we manage a 16,000 space operation for Louisville, Kentucky. We also manage the operation for the city of Raleigh, North Carolina. So we have experience with different municipalities, also smaller ones like Wichita, Kansas. So we have that feel for what works for different communities, and we're going to bring that same feel and approach to this community. So looking forward to working with you all.
Yeah, thanks, Brendon. As I mentioned, we went through an interview process, and we interviewed 4 different potential operators. We were very impressed with Car Park because, as Brendon said, they were a right fit for the similar operations that they currently manage in other places in the country. They run the municipal systems. They're very, very up to speed on what the latest technologies are, and so we've asked them to take an overall look at the operation. Where can you bring efficiencies? How can we maximize revenue? How can we improve customer service? We're going to be looking at things like rebranding. You can see ABM's name is over everything. That's going to change. It'll be something related to the community, something with Scranton in the name. So there's a lot of work to do, but we're excited about working with Car Park, looking to make some changes and improving both the efficiency, the customer service, and the operation, the financials overall. So we're excited. So
Brendon, you're the regional VP?
Correct.
So where will you be based out of?
I'm based out of Raleigh, North Carolina.
Raleigh? Okay. So there'll be someone in Scranton that'll be running the operations. You'll just kind of oversee things.
Correct. The general manager will be based here in Scranton.
And will there be a new general manager, or is it?
We're looking at retaining the current general manager.
You are, okay.
Looking to retain as much as the current team as possible.
Okay.
They know obviously what they're doing. We're just looking to add some support and learn from their expertise and bring sort of some of our expertise to continue to improve the operation.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem.
All right, we'll jump into the financial performance. Starting off, we'll take a look at how we finished in '23. As you can see by the numbers, our revenue was a lot better than what we predicted, better by budget, $360,000. Expenses, however, were worse, about $110,000. NOI coming out better than budget, however, $251,000. The next slide will kind of show more of where those numbers come from. Really, the transient parking, ABM did not have the pulse on it, so in a good way, I should say. We just didn't know what to expect coming back. But one key thing to note is the volume is up about 54% of where we were pre-COVID. So those are encouraging signs as we head into the first quarter here in '24.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think you'll see on the far right, the '23 budget and the variance numbers. You'll see the monthly parking is better than budget. We've seen growth there. We've seen a lot of residential parking increases in the downtown, and that's been good for us. What Jake mentioned, the transient parking is better than budget by almost, 40-some%. We were a little unsure what that was going to look like this year because if you remember last year we lowered the rates. We lowered the rates from $4 an hour to $1 an hour. Well, what we're starting to see is what we hoped for. More people are going into the garages, paying the $1 an hour.
David, it was $2 an hour, I think, and we lowered it to $1.
I think it's $2 on the street. It actually was
that's
$4 in the
street.
garages.
Right.
So it was actually a three-quarter reduction, 75% reduction. So we didn't project a 75% reduction in revenue. We knew we'd capture some of that, but actually we did better than expected on this year. And we expect that to continue. What we hope and what we had been hoping for is that more folks would go off the street into the garages, and that would free up on-street spaces at the higher price point. So
that plan worked?
So far, so good, yeah.
Okay.
So far, so good. So that's a good sign. And the rest of the numbers stay pretty similar. Again, we are still seeing some increase in the on-street revenue, which is a good sign. I mean, we're not expecting that to dramatically increase next year, as Jake will talk through the budget, but that's because we still are seeing people come in and using the garages more. So that's a good sign.
Any questions on the '23 numbers? Moving on, this, if you look all the way to the right, you'll see the '24 budget numbers compared to the '23 actuals and the variance. As Dave mentioned, we as far as transients, we are still seeing a growth pattern, so we hope and expect that to continue. One thing to note with the monthly parkers, we are losing quite a few because the county parker is going to garage outside of the system. We haven't felt the full effect that we thought we would when this budget was prepared, so we should be able to capture that variance, at least at 25% more of that. All the expenses for '24 look to remain steady, a few increases here and there, cost of living, with utilities and what have you. Any questions on the '24 budget?
Yeah, really not much to add. I think we expect '23 to be very similar to '24, other than the monthly parkers we're losing from the county. This is going to be an important year for us because it'll be the first full year that we think we're beyond the pandemic with the new rate structure. That's going to be important for our bondholders to know because, as you know, and as we're looking at, we're passing a deficit. We passed a deficit budget, which means we don't expect to have enough money to make our debt service payments. I think we expected that. ND last year, we finished about 1-to-1. We had just enough money to cover our payments. This year, we expect to be a little under that. But this year will be an important one because this will be a full year with the lower rates where we think we're beyond the pandemic. So our bondholders will be watching that very closely. We expect to be issuing new bonds, or they do, within the next year or so. We want to make sure that we time that because, as we know, interest rates are very high right now. Nobody wants to go into the market and borrow money if they don't have to. So we're going to monitor this very closely. Our next payment is due in July. I think we'll see how things shape up over the next few months. We hope and expect that we'll be able to make that payment. Not looking good at the moment because it's a big number and it's still early in the year. But if we're able to make that payment, we'll buy some time, and then we'll look with our bondholders to go back into the market probably late this year or early next year. But this year will be an important one because it's going to give us a good idea of how we think the system's going to operate over the long run. So we stay very close to the bondholders. We talk to them every quarter, and they're actually very pleased with the partnership with the city, and they're very pleased with the way things are starting to shape up post-pandemic. If you can look at our revenue in 2023 was $4,483,000. Our revenue in 2019 was $4,005,000. That's with a lower garage rates of $1 an hour. That's a good sign for us. Now, we want that to continue, and we hope there's just enough parkers out there to keep that growing. And we got Car Park and Brendon here to help us make sure we're being as efficient as possible and maximizing our revenues so that we'll be in a position to issue new bonds and put this system on solid footing for the next 10, 20 years. So.
We do only have 1 month of P&Ls as of today, but as you take a look, unfortunately, revenues were worse than budget, 22,000, expenses worse than budget, and that will obviously give us a worse than budget for NOI. Thing here with the expenses, ABM had about $33,000 worth of invoices that were from October, November, December to hit in '24.
Yeah, this month doesn't look good because we're playing catch-up. A lot of bills that were supposed to be paid in the last year are being paid this year. So even though we had a good year last year, some of those expenses are being paid now, so we're starting off not great, but we think that's not a problem. It's only 1 month numbers.
And then here's our comparison and our actual to budget variance. As Dave mentioned, we do believe that as we get further into the year, these numbers will start going the other way for us. Any questions on January numbers? I just want to thank you guys for your time. Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
I have a quick question. So a couple people have approached me about this. Sorry, let me turn this on. A couple people have approached me about, so, I'm living here long enough to know, when to park, when you can park, when do you have to pay to park? Weekends you don't. What is it now, 5:30? The hour is 5? But there used to be signs posted that I remember. But I'm hearing complaints from residents or people that are new here that even after 5 o'clock or on the weekends, say their family comes up from out of town and they don't know any better, so they put money in the machine and the machine accepts it. First of all, is there a mechanism to stop that? And if so, is that part of the overall revenue? And what percentage of revenue are we getting in off hours?
I can't speak to the number. I think we can go look at that. I don't think it's substantial. I think you're right. Some people pay. I've done it myself in towns where I don't see the sign and I don't want to get a ticket, so I go ahead and put money in the meter. But I do think, Jake, you'll have to correct me, that there are signs or on the screen that has the hours on the screen, and it may not be as visible as it could be, but I think that's something we can look at. I mean, we're not trying to fool people. I mean,
No, I think they are on the kiosks. You have to go up. I think it says 8 to 5. It says right on it.
It does. I thought it did, yeah.
All right, well, I'm just relaying a concern or multiple concerns that I've received.
I appreciate that.
Maybe it needs to be highlighted or in a better way. Just take a look at it for us.
Absolutely.
I can relay that to these residents that you are looking at it.
Absolutely.
So Dave, did you say you may be struggling to pay the bond in June?
Well, there's a payment due in July. So far, we've been able to make our payments on time.
Right.
And, we've been using our reserves to do that in some cases. We're constantly monitoring our reserves and monitoring our cash flow.
When you default on a bond,
And if we did a projection today, we wouldn't be able to make that payment in July. What that would mean is that we might have to go into the market sooner to refinance, and the bondholders are well aware of this, and we're working very closely with them.
right, but
It's
you
a matter
have
of
a
cash flow.
set date where that payment is due.
Correct.
So if you don't pay it on time, you're considered in default
Correct.
of your bond.
Correct.
That's going to affect your bond rating as well, correct?
Our bond rating. I mean, we're not rating the bonds anymore because these bonds are all held by one bondholder, Alliance Bernstein. So we don't actually go ahead and rate the bonds any longer. So it's important when we go back into the market, and we'll have to do that when we issue new bonds,
I
but
mean,
we're not currently doing
They'll
that.
base your rating on your track record, correct?
Correct. You're absolutely right in that if we miss that payment, which we don't, so one thing or two things will happen. Either we'll go back into the market and issue bonds now, or we'll go find money to make that payment. We don't, it's too early in the year to know, and we're doing projections now. Our hope is that we'll go,
What is that projected bond payment in July?
I'm guessing it might be 500,000. I'd have to go look, but I think it's 500,000 or 600,000.
How far are you away from?
We're actually doing projections now. We do have some reserves that we'd have to move money from other trust accounts to those accounts, and again, the bondholders would have to approve that. So I'm actually feeling like we'll be able to figure that out, but I think by next month, we'll have a projection, and we'll know one way or the other. And then we'll put plans in place. What we're not going to do is miss it. We're either going to work with the bondholders to go into the market, or we're going to find the money to make the payment, one or the other. I agree with you, Councilperson. We don't want to default. We're not going to default.
You don't.
What we're going to do is work with our bondholders to either go into the back, find the dollars somewhere, or start the process to go back into the market. So it's a cash flow issue. It's a cash flow situation at the moment. So, and we're monitoring close, and we're doing projections. We only have January numbers. We moved away from ABM. We're transitioning over to car park, so the accounting right now is a little bit up in the air, trying to get information from ABM, and next month we'll be in a good spot. We'll be fully transitioned. We'll have good numbers, and bills will be paid on time, not late. We'll be in a much better position to know exactly where we are come July.
There's no doubt that the word is definitely getting out about the garages, that it's $1 an hour. Like, for instance, I get my hair cut down here at Loyalty on Adams Avenue.
They do a really good job, by the way.
Thank you. Trust me.
I couldn't help
didn't
myself.
have
I'm
much to
sorry.
work
I couldn't
with,
help myself.
they cut it all off, but none of them in there knew. They didn't know a lot of things. They know how to cut hair. They do a great job at that, but they didn't know that if I use a kiosk in front of Loyalty and I paid for, I don't know, 2 hours, that I could go down to downtown Delhi, and it doesn't matter where I park in the city, that it's good for 2 hours anywhere. That was one thing they didn't know. The other thing they didn't know was that the garages were $1 an hour. They're like, whoa, you got to be kidding me. I said, no, I said, get the word out to your friends, because, and the third thing that I've noticed is there's been a number of times where I've had to come down here to City Hall, and I knew I maybe was going to be here for quite some time, and actually for other business other than City Hall, but you go into the parking garages, and they're pretty filled up. I mean, there was a time when you would pull in there, you'd get a spot on the first or second floor, and now it's like you're doing circles, and so that is a good thing.
That's a good sign.
I seem like we took a chance on that, lowering that rate, but I think as the word has gotten out, that strategy is starting to pay off. But in the meantime, it's opened the spaces. I will tell you, there's other times where I've gone in and I put enough for an hour on the street, and I stayed for 10 minutes, and I went home. So, I mean, you made money on me there, and I think that's the other thing you're looking to do, is open those spaces up for people who need to run in and out or what have you.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree that we can do a better job of getting the word out, and it's one of the things that we're going to be working on with Car Park is to get that word out. We're going to be revamping the website. We're getting it transitioned over now from ABM. we'll be doing some PSAs so that
The
folks
other
know.
thing is, it doesn't have to be brain
Absolutely.
surgery. You take somebody from Car Park, right downtown on Adams Avenue, you take one of those employees, you print off about 150 sheets, and you walk into every single business in downtown Scranton, so that everybody
Let 'em know.
that at least works in town knows and understands that. That right there is huge.
I agree.
And then they, can let their customers know on top of it, or something that they could post in their business too, so that people are aware of it.
Yep.
Just a thought.
I agree, and we've been working with Scranton tomorrow as well, and they've agreed to work with us to get the word out as well in representing the merchants, and they've been very helpful, and I expect to have a closer partnership now, and we expect to connect Car Park to Scranton tomorrow so we can work together on how to best educate the merchants and the folks who are visiting. The other thing I'll mention is the app. I mean, we may be adding an app, so maybe we'll have two for a little while. I think Car Park uses a different app than we currently have, but it can be a lifesaver. If you're getting your hair cut and they're late and they're behind and you bought an hour on the street and you're going to run out, you don't have to get up from your seat. You just put a little more time in your phone and you bought more time. And it only costs you another couple dollars, and so when you avoid getting a ticket. So we want folks to be aware of those things, and you're right, folks don't think about that until they come down and it actually happens. But I agree, we need to and we will do a better job of getting the word out on that.
I'm looking for the app I have here from Allentown. I went to see Adam Sandler, and I downloaded the app. I forget the name of it.
Was it Park Mobile?
I think that's what it was, yeah. I know it's on my phone. Oh, I think it's probably on this phone here. Looking for it. Yeah. I can't find it right now, but it's somewhere here on my phone, but...
It's
that-
probably
that-
Park Mobile,
people
but
like
that's a bit...
that. People like to be able to do what you said, that, oh, man, I thought I'd be here for an hour. Now I can just, at my phone, you could save yourself. Because unfortunately, I've also had people who missed it by 30 seconds.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
They didn't care, man. Too bad you lost.
And I think it's important for folks to know, with technology today and license plate technology, it's not like the meter person is walking around and it takes them an hour to get around town to look at lights, look at who's over time. They're driving around in their car with a machine with license plate technology, and it pings them when they drive by. So it's really kind of hard to, beat it these days. And
What's the name of the app right now?
Pango.
Pango.
Pay as you go.
Oh, Pango, that's
Pay-
right.
Yeah, pay as you go.
Does the Pango app tell you the parking times too? Like,
Good question. Is it times on there?
Yeah, it should be on there.
it should be.
The hours of operation, you mean?
Can we,
Let's make
I'll
we'll make sure.
confirm and follow up with you,
Time's counting.
send you a
no,
screenshot.
does it tell you that it's 8 to 5?
We'll confirm.
Yeah.
I'm almost sure it
If
does, but we'll
doesn't,
check.
Moving forward with any app that we put on there or that we decide to use, I think that it's incumbent upon us as
Agreed.
a city to make sure that at least they know that it's 8 to 5. Because
Agreed.
we have people pulling in here from Allentown, from New York City, wherever, and they don't know, and if they have that app, it'll tell them exactly what's needed. So.
Just for some feedback, I think each time you came, I think we've gotten, some complaints about maybe kiosks being down, and I think you described that you do have a system that lets you know when a kiosk is down, so you could see it maybe at headquarters or wherever you're looking at,
Right.
your computer system, but I haven't heard a complaint in some time, but just letting the new company know, I guess, that was something we get from time to time, that some of the kiosks are down.
We've already talked about it a bit, and we are monitoring our time to visit and repair, and we are working on a system.
Yeah, we'll update.
The other thing to consider, and I don't know, maybe it's a business strategy to just be happy that people didn't know and they paid, but it would be nice that after 5 p.m., payment's rejected because it's not needed at that time. Just a thought.
Great, thank you.
I have a quick question. So, no, I agree with all that. The public needs to be more aware and educated with this whole process. I don't even understand it fully. That's why I ask the questions I do when you're here. How many businesses or medical practices validate parking in the city? Do you have a number?
It's only those at the...
Just in the mall only?
Yep, that's right.
Did you ever look outside of that to try to capture some revenue, some businesses that are close to some of the garages, or is there, is that a thought process ever?
It's the validation system for the merchants that we used to have in place was more designed to offer a discount to encourage people to move into the garages. So if it was $4 an hour and you bought a validation system, you can buy ahead. So you can buy passes at $2 and then pay for your visitors' parking, for example. Well, when we went to $1 an hour, we did away with the discount, so we did away with the validation system for merchants. We could still offer that, and it's still available. If a merchant wants to pay for their customers' parking, they could then buy parking time and then use the validation system, and then,
Boss Scrubs does that.
yeah, pay.
Well, yeah,
pays-
so does the dentist that I go to there. But I'm asking...
Anything at the mall does that.
Right, so, but I'm just thinking, is it worth venturing out and outside of the mall? But you said it's only $1, so, but not on the
Yeah,
street. You can't validate parking on the street.
The advantage would
Or a
be
discount.
allowing, and we can do this now, allowing merchants to pay for their visitors' parking.
Yeah.
It doesn't give us any more
At the
revenue,
regular
because either
rate.
we get it from the customer or we get it from the visitor. It doesn't matter to us, but it's a convenience if a merchant wants to cover the parking of their customer, then that's something we offer.
Okay, thank you.
Just to be transparent, I didn't have all these great questions. A friend of mine in the audience has been sending me a couple questions, so,
Pretty sharp person there.
yes.
Anyone else? Good. All right, thank you, gentlemen, for coming in, updating.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
time.
Thank
See you
you.
next quarter.
Thank you.